אני רוצה להיות ברור. המלחמה נמשכת. המלחמה נמשכת.
שבגמר המתווה אנחנו חוזרים בכל העוצמה לממש את היעדים שלנו.
יש בחוץ דיבורי הבל. כאילו אחרי ההפוגה להשבת חטופינו, אנחנו נפסיק את המלחמה. אז אני מבקש להבהיר, אנחנו במלחמה, ונמשיך במלחמה.
These are just some of the many times, in the lead up to the Israel-Hamas truce and during the ceasefire, that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu emphasized that his country would resume war against the Palestinian armed group Hamas in Gaza. And so it did, on December 1st, when a shaky 7-day pause to the fighting ended with an alleged rocket fire from Gaza, which was intercepted by Tel Aviv, followed by an intense Israeli airstrike campaign accompanied with artillery fire, resulting in the death of at least 21 people in the Gaza Strip in less than an hour. The truce provided some much-needed respite to the Gazans from Israel's air, land, and sea attacks amid a blockade on fuel, medical, and other essentials. But it also led to the release of some of the 240 Israeli and other hostages taken by Hamas during the October 7th deadly attack on southern Israel in exchange for the release of Palestinian prisoners languishing in Israeli jails, many without charges or conviction. Apart from eliminating Hamas, which the Israeli army hasn't been able to do in more than 50 days of war, one of the three stated war goals of Prime Minister Netanyahu was to get Hamas's captives released. And ceasefire with the armed group seemed to be the only successful way to achieve that goal so far. As in nearly 51 days of war prior to the truce, the Israeli army couldn't rescue a single hostage. In fact, if Hamas's claim is to be believed, then a 10-month-old baby, who was the youngest hostage kidnapped and taken to Gaza, was killed in an Israeli bombing alongside his mother and brother, raising fear that further Israeli attacks on the besieged enclave, where Hamas operates through underground tunnels and which is where the hostages are most likely held captive, could only endanger the lives of more hostages. So, if hostage release is a priority for Netanyahu, then why not put all his energy into resuming a truce with Hamas, which could eventually lead to an end to the war? Is the continuation of war more about Netanyahu's political survival? Does Bibi want a never-ending war? Netanyahu, a seasoned politician who has served his country as prime minister 3 times, saw his popularity take a plunge since the war began. A Channel 12 survey published on November 16 found that the Netanyahu-led far-right coalition that won 64 seats in the November 2022 elections would crash to just 45 seats in the 120-strong Knesset if elections were held now. From the failure of the Israeli intelligence under Netanyahu's government to prevent the October 7th Hamas attack to failing to get all the hostages back home, a number of factors influenced this dip in Bibi's popularity. Many family members of the Israeli hostages even accused the Netanyahu government of not prioritizing the return of the captives.
Now, when we've met with the entire cabinet, what we've heard is that taking down Hamas and bringing the hostages are as important, are equally important. As far as I am concerned, and I represent myself and my family, this is incredibly disappointing because I feel that at this point, when we know that taking down Hamas, we keep hearing from them, is going to take months or years, and it's going to take a long time. On the other hand, the other objective is time sensitive. People are dying. Then we all feel, especially when we're talking about our families, that this should be the top priority.
Netanyahu was already facing political trouble in Israel over laws proposed by his government that seek to overhaul the country's judiciary. Critics and experts see these laws as bid to weaken judicial independence. Israel witnessed widespread protests against the laws, with some even demanding Netanyahu's resignation. And these protests even saw military reservists join them. But the movement died down after the Hamas attack. Netanyahu has also struggled to keep his far-right coalition partners in line. Several of them have been playing to their own loyalists and advocating ever more outlandish policies, including blocking any humanitarian aid to Gaza, annexing the Strip and even nuking it. Netanyahu himself has been accused of self-serving political mudslinging after issuing a string of divisive statements blaming the country's military and intelligence chiefs for the failure to prevent the October 7th attack. The security chiefs have accepted their share of the blame, but Netanyahu has not, saying what went wrong should be assessed later, presumably when he hopes his polling numbers might have recovered. For now, Netanyahu's eyes seem focused on what may happen politically once the war has finished. Observers say that the end of the war would refocus the Israeli public's attention on Netanyahu's shortcomings in handling the crisis triggered by the deadly Hamas attack, which led to the death of some 1,200 Israelis. It would also turn the spotlight on the destruction caused by Israel's attack on Gaza, which had led to a humanitarian crisis in the small strip of land, killing more than 14,000 Palestinians, including 6,000 children, and displacing some 1.5 million Gazans. Since the war began. This may not be good news for Netanyahu's political career domestically as well as internationally, as he would be the leader under whose regime many countries, especially in the global south, either took diplomatic action by severing ties with Israel or withdrawing its envoys from Tel Aviv for its policy, especially during wartime, towards Palestinians who are already living under Israeli occupation for decades now. For now, a war seems to be the only way out for Netanyahu to avoid scrutiny at home and abroad, as all energies remain focused on either averting the war or pushing it.